Hi friends, this is Sanjay Barnwal. Today I am going to talk about lease out business process utilizing SAP Flexible Real Estate Management Solution, in short SAP RE-FX. I had published quite a few videos in the past related to lease in scenarios where a lessee takes some assets on lease, and then as per the IFRS 16 or Index 116 requirements, he will have to record the lease as a right of use assets, book the liabilities. I have been asked by many friends that I should publish a video on the lease out processes from a lesser perspective. So this video is for those people, and I hope it gives you a good information. So let's talk about lease out business. So what does it cover and what are the business characteristics for a lease out business scenario? So where a company owns office or residential towers, malls, warehouses, business parks, etc., or any other type of real estate assets, and it wants to lease the units from those assets to tenants. It also wants to collect monthly or quarterly rent, manages security deposits against those leases, handles the rent escalations. So these are all covered under the lease out business processes. It has to recover the common area maintenance charges, for example, like housekeeping, electricity, air conditioning charges, securities, parking area maintenance. Then also another aspect is manage the vacancies and occupancy rates. So it has one big commercial tower or residential tower. So how many units are vacant, how many units are occupied. So it wants to understand those reporting as well. So all these things are covered under your lease out business processes. So so how SAP helps? So and what are the key RE-FX functionalities related to this lease out scenario? So like in the in lease out also you create a lease out contracts. There are certain master data elements which I'll talk later on, but primarily from the day-to-day operational perspective. So you create a lease out contracts. It allows you to manage rent escalations, notice periods, so rent, contract renewals, security deposits, vacancy management, service charge recovery like the common area maintenance part, occupancy reporting, as well as country specific legal requirement. So the best part of RE-FX is its flexibility, which allows the organization to maintain, design the processes that align with their accounting policies, management reporting requirements, and the regulatory obligations. For example, if you are in UAE, there are legal requirements for any real estate company to have details maintained related to Ejari registration, Dewa premise number, Makani number. So all these things SAP allows to have maintained in the RE-FX module through some customization. I'll also show you in SAP through some examples how they are made available. And all these information are available once you customize the solution in your reports as well. Another good flexibility from the RE-FX perspective is the vacancy. Some companies may want to have a vacancy management as a statistical reporting, or another company may want to have vacancies to be recorded in the P&L. So SAP allows both the things. So it allows the statistical vacancy management, as well as it allows you to report the vacancies as a P&L accounting to a dedicated P&L account. So debit and credit both will go to the profit and loss account. Similarly, security deposit. So in security deposit case also, some organizations may want to show in RE-FX module under SAP lease accounting security deposit as a statistical posting only, and they maintain the security deposit outside SAP lease accounting. However, some other organizations may want to treat security deposit as a liability obligations. So SAP then allows you to post the security deposit through RE-FX module to liability account. So both the, again, it's a very flexible solutions. So depending on the company's accounting policies and the country specific requirement, it allows you to manage it allows you to configure the system in such a way that it meets your own accounting policies related requirement. Let's talk about the master data in SAP RE-FX. So the first and foremost important thing is the business entity. So business entity is an organizational unit which is used to manage and report real estate properties owned or controlled by a company. So what are the characteristics of a business entity? It is the top level object in the RE-FX hierarchy. So business entity you create below the company code. So you will have a company code, and then you will create the business entity. A business entity can contain multiple land parcels and buildings. It is used for your reporting and portfolio management, and it is often aligned with geography, legal ownership, or management responsibility. However, business entity does not directly generate the rental income. So I'm just giving you one example for a business entity. So for example, we know Blackstone. So Blackstone REIT, which is a real estate company. So how the business entity can be defined in SAP? It can have, say, in Bangalore one commercial property, Mumbai another commercial property, Hyderabad another commercial property. So you can define in SAP 3 different unique business entities for each of these commercial properties. So for example, Bangalore commercial properties you can define as BE-BLR, BE-MUM for Mumbai commercial properties, BE-HYD Hyderabad office portfolio, just to give you some example. Next to the business entity, the master data in RE-FX is building. So a building is a physical property or structure that contains one or more rentable spaces. So for example, you have created a building, 19 floors building, and it will have, say, each floor has got 8 residential apartment, or each floor has got 10,000 square feet of rentable space. So you will create the building with all these characteristics. So it represents the physical asset basically, and then you will also define the maintenance related requirement, valuation, insurance, property management, location, all these things you will define within the building. A building can contain multiple rental objects, as I mentioned. If it is a 19 floor buildings, so each floor can be one rental object, or within one floor also you can have multiple rental objects. Building also does not typically participate in a lease contract, so you will not be generating a rental income from a building directly. So this is an example of a building. So you have a business entity, we saw in the previous example, Bangalore commercial property. So you can define buildings for this Bangalore commercial property. So tower A is one building, B, tower B, you can have another IT park, block C, likewise. So these are all different types of different examples for a buildings. The third master data, which is the most important one, is the rental object. A rental object is the actual rentable space that can be leased to a tenant through a lease out contract. So this is the master data where you will be managing the rental income, defining the rental rates and different types of recoverable charges. So rental object is the uh, uh, actual rentable space. So in the building, when you have one floor, in that floor, if you have identified say 5,000 square feet area to be given to a rent, so that 5,000 square feet area will be considered as one rental object, and it is directly linked to the lease contract. So in the lease contract, you will use that rental object where you will define like who is the lessee, what's the rent I am going to recover from the lessee, what is the period, validity period, all those things you define in the rental object. Even vacancy management you will perform at this level. So all the different charges like rent, service charges, common area maintenance, parking fees, all these things you get it from the rental objects. So example of rental object. So you had building tower A, then in the tower A you can have these different types of rental objects, say office 101, office 102, office 103, retail shop you may have, parking area you may have. So these are all different types of rental objects you can create. So if you have got a tenant, say ABC Technologies, you will create a lease contract and the rental object will be office 101, for example, and then you will say that this office 101 area is 10,000 square feet. I am going to charge a rent of 1 million rupees per month. So the contract is created against the rental object, not against the building. So if you think about a real world example, so you have a say legal entity, Blackstone REIT. This entity has got a say business mall in Dubai, so we call it as a Nexus Mall Dubai. You can give the building name, business entity name as Nexus Mall Dubai, then you can give the building name as mall building. Rental object can be one individual shop, say G001, and you have given the shop to rent to a Nike store with a parking area P001. So when you create a lease out contract, you will create a rental agreement with Nike for shop and parking. So if we just have in one slide, what is the SAP process flow then? So you first create the master data, like create the business entity, then create the building master data, create a rental object. After that you go to create the lease out contract. Then you will do the periodic posting and billing document creation, and finally revenue account posting will happen. So I have created some master data and transactional data in SAP. So I'll just show you first, and then I'll also take you to SAP directly, and there we will I'll create as live transaction as well. So this is the T code to create a business entity in SAP REBDBE. So as you can see here, we define the business entity. You can give internal number or external number, and then you give the name of the business entity. So and then you also can assign under the posting parameter a profit center. You will also have the opportunity to identify the area unit. Do you want to measure the business entity having different buildings in square feet, square meter? What is the area unit you want to define? Then what is the tenancy law applicable to this business entity? So you can say it is applicable with the Dubai tenancy law. So these are the some basic information you maintain for a business entity. Then now I am in the building related master data. So the T code for that is REBDBU. When you create a building, it must be created with reference to a business entity. So first you created the business entity, now you create a business building, And again, building also you can have internal or external naming number range. So as you can see, we can give the name of the building and the validity from when this building is available. So you can define the validity period. Here we can also define like what is the usage of this building. Is it for commercial or residential? And there are different options available, so you can define all these things here, like whether the building condition is having some problems or it has no faults, then what are the total area of the building. Then you can also define like these are the different options you have. So total area, floor wise area, living area, all these things you can define here under the measurements tab. The last master data I am creating here is the rental object in SAP. The T code is REBD-RO. So again, rental object, first we assign it to a business entity, but when you go in and also you define the rental unit is respect to what usage type. So you can define usage type as privately financed accommodation or office, or you can configure if you have some other requirement as well. Rental object also can be internal number or external number as per your requirement. Once you go inside, so first we had assigned the rental object to a business entity. Now we also need to assign the rental object to a building or to a land. So in my example, I am assigning it to a building and then give the name of the rental object. Also you have to define a currency. So the company code I am using for this test is created with the GBP currency. So by default it is picking up GBP. So if you want to use foreign currency, it is possible to use. Otherwise, by default, it will pick up the company code currency. In the additional data tab, you also assign the location of the rental object. So in which part of the building this rental object exists. Is it east wing, north wing, west wing? All these things are available. Which floor it is available, what is the location on the floor. There are lots of things you can define in the rental object. Similarly, the area, what is the area of this rental object. So we defined the total area for the building. So out of that total area, how much area this rental object occupies. You also can define the rent, which will be used for your vacancy purposes. So you can define some rate and then it will be available for you to manage the vacancy. The rental part you define under the conditions tab. Finally, so once you have defined all these things, then you save the rental object. Now we come to the contract creation. So contract creation uses the same T code RECN like what we had seen in lease accounting related to lessee side. However, the contract type is different. So here contract type you will use commercial lease out or residential lease out options. Then you assign the rental unit, and as I mentioned earlier, so contract is always created against a rental object. So you will assign the contract to a rental object. Then you will also create a customer. So you will assign the customer to this contract, and this customer will be created with the business partner. Then you give the validity date, from which validity this contract is valid, what is the notice period available. So all these things you can define. As I mentioned, in UAE there are some legal requirements related to Ejari number, Makani number, Dewa number. So you can define all these fields here. So this is a customization I have done by adding these custom fields So it's very easy to do in SAP REFX to add any custom fields you have for the country specific requirement. Then you give the name of the contract. So commercial unit 1 lease contract. What is the tenancy law? You also define, like, the in the master data partner section, system will pull all the information from the customer which you had given in the first tab. So business partner role, you can see here, it gets derived from the business partner which I assigned in the first screen. So TR0600 is the master tenant with customer account. Then conditions tab, I will give the rental unit, and I can also have many other conditions added here, but for the sake of simplicity I have just used one condition to create the contract. You can also have a different contract rate for different validity periods, so with the escalation, for example. So or you can also give options, like if for 3 months there is a zero free rent, and after 3 months, if you have a contract for say 15 months and you want to give 3 months rent free period, this happens quite frequently in country like UAE, Qatar and all. So you can define that in the conditions tab. So first 3 months will be free and next 12 months will be chargeable. So once you have done all these things, then you save the contract and activate it. So contract is created like this one, 10016. After contract is created, then we go to the periodic posting, RER APP T code. So here we will post the rent for the period April. The contract is started from April. So you give the period, like for which period you want to post the rental contract, and execute in the simulation mode first. So as you can see, system generates this accounting entry. It will debit the customer account, credit the revenue from third party rent, and also credit the tax, output tax account. Once the accounting entry is created related to rental income, we can generate the rental invoice. So for that we will, okay, before that I also wanted to show you the accounting document. So you can see the accounting document. So first I had done the simulation, then I executed in the update run. So in the update run, system generates this document number, and when I click on this document number, it will show me accounting document, RE document, and it gets posted to my customer and revenue account with our tax GL account as well. So after the accounting entry has been posted, then I can create a invoice which will be which I can send it to the customer. So the T code to create invoice is RERAIV. So here then I'll give the contract number and the period for which I want to create the contract, and I'll select the items from FI documents. So then system generates this accounting document number. So this will create a invoice run ID number, and after that I can create a invoice printout using another transaction called RECPA 520. So now I'll take you to SAP, and there we will do some transaction posting. So let's start with the rental object creation. Business entity first I'll create. So I'll give the name BLR, for example. I can give the name. So here. Say Bangalore commercial properties. So I can give the then I come to posting parameter and I'll assign one profit center and then I can save it. So in the business entity I can keep this basic information and then save it. Okay, I have to also assign the tenancy law. So Dubai tenancy law. I can check here like if there is any error. Now no errors found. So in the reference section I can add the tenancy law and then save it. So my business entity has been created. Now let's do the business building creation REBD So as I mentioned, we need to create the building using the business entity as a reference, and then I'll give the building name as BLR01 for example. And then I can give say tower 1 or I can say commercial tower 1 for example. I can give a validity date 01/01/2026 to 31st December 99. Then I'll go to additional data tab and I can define main usage type. So I can say it is office related one. Then building condition. So is there any fault or no fault? So I can select it's having no fault. So number of floors, how many floors it is going to have? So I can say 19 floors. Then I can come here, measurement. I can define total area. What is the total area of the building? Say I will say 50,000 square feet. I can also define the measurements. Yeah. There are some other features like you can define the furniture, fixtures and fittings. For example, like what is the flooring of that building. So if you want to assign anything, you can check that also. For example, it is a concrete flooring or covering tiles and then add it. So it will be added like that. So it allows you to add lots of information as much as you want. There are if something is not available, it can be configured also. Once building is created, you can save it. So building is now created. Now we will go to create the rental object, which is REBDRO. So we will give a rental object name as BLR01. BLR01. Here we will define the usage type. We will assign usage type office and continue. Then assign the building. So I can assign either the building or land. So BLR01 I have assigned. Then I can give a name of the rental object. So I'll say office 101. Here also I'll define the validity date. So from when this office is available, it's available from 1st January 2026. That's it. The currency comes by default from the company code as I mentioned earlier. In the additional data tab, we can assign the location. So this rental object is in which part of the building. So I will say that it is part of the main building. On which floor it is. So it's on the second floor, for example. Then location on floor. So what is the location of this particular rental object? So it is, say, just randomly I'm selecting number 5. Okay, so I have to select from the drop down of the floor. So let's see, second floor. This is my second floor. So measurement, what is the area of this rental object? So I will say 5000 square feet. So then it will pick up the total area 5000 square feet. I can also assign a cost center here if there is some recoverable charges I want to spend, then I can use this cost center as a default. And finally I'll come here and I'll assign the vacancy rent. So I'll just use basic rent here, and as you can see, it's by default it picks up vacancy rent. So I can say in this commercial unit is 300 GBP. If it does not get any rent, then I'll be losing 300 GBP per month, and currently it is configured as statistical. As I mentioned, I can have vacancy either as a statistical or I can post to a P&L account. So in this example, I am showing it as a statistical. So if there is any vacancy happening, then I can get this report for vacancy. I'll create a new video related to vacancy and security deposit separately. So now let's check if there is anything missing. No errors found. So I can save this rental object. So my rental object has been saved. Now finally I'll go and create a contract. So as you know, RECN is to create the contract. I'll use commercial lease out. So I'll assign the object. So it is giving me by default the last used object. I can use one master data I have created here for this purpose. And I can say that, okay, this unit I am giving on rent from say 1st March 2026 or say from 1st May 2026. So it means from 1st January to 30th April the unit was vacant up to say 31st December 2027. Then I'll assign the profit center. Now you can see notice period also I can assign. So I have a configured notice period 90 days notice. Here I can define the Ejari number, which is Ejari registration number, which is needed by the Dubai government. So I just configured those 3 fields as a custom fields to showcase how flexible RE-FX solution is to meet any country's legal requirements. So I can say Ejari number, similarly Makani number I can save here, and these information will be available in the report also. And then I can give a contract name. So I am saying this is a office 101 contract for say 17 months, 19 months. And then I'll also assign the tenancy law. Currency, again it comes by default from the company code. However, SAP allows us to create contract in a non-company code currency as well, but for me, for now, I'll stick with the company code currency. In the partners, you can see the business partner role gets derived from the master data which I assigned in the first screen. Then I'll go to the object. So object, you can see rental object is coming, and the validity date is also here for that object. Then I'll go to the posting parameter. This is important. Here we define the tax code. So by default it will it is configured as taxable. So I am going to charge 10% VAT on this rental contract. Then I come to the conditions. In the conditions, I will define the different type of rent rental and other charges I want to have. So you can see like parking charge, parking or garage rent, heating expenses. So there are lots of conditions records available, and you can add many more if you need. For now, I'll just go with the basic rent, and I'll say the rent is 300. In this case, you can see it is not having the checkbox as statistical because this is actual rent. In the case of object, when I had assigned the unit price, it was coming as a statistical, checkbox was statistical because it was for the vacancy purpose. Now let's check if there is anything missing. No errors found, so I can save the contract. So contract number 10017 was created. Now let's activate it. Contract is now activated. Now I'll go to the periodic posting. RERAPP. So I have come to this transaction for the periodic posting contract, and then I'll do the periodic posting for period May. May 2026 and 0105 2026 0105 2026 and execute. So we can see system has created this simulated entry for the rental revenue posting. So my customer will be debited, rental revenue will be credited with output tax coming. So I have this 20% VAT rate, not 10%. Yeah. Now I'll change it to update run and then execute. So we can see now document. Yeah. So system has generated one accounting document. Let's see the accounting document first. So this is the accounting document, and you can see it has got the contract number as a reference, the period also for which the rent has been posted, 1st April, May to 31st May, and it also posted the output tax. So this is a very straightforward and it creates it helps the accountant from managing hundreds of lease contract very easily. And in this RE-FX you can execute the transaction for list of contract. You can just leave the contract field blank. You can just put the contract tab and all the contracts valid for this period will be selected, and then you can post the rental in your books of accounts. Now let's do the invoice posting. So invoice posting transaction is RERAIV. So again, contract is 10017. We will post the invoice for the period 1st May to 31st May. And this invoice will be given to the customer. Let's do it in the simulation mode first. So we can see the system is going to generate the contract for 360 GBP, which includes the tax amount. So I'll remove the simulation and go to the update run. In the update run, it creates one invoice run ID. So this run ID I will have to use to generate the invoice printout. So the last transaction in this process is RECPA 520. So as you can see here, it has correspondence invoice. So I can select the invoice run ID based on the today's date and then execute. So document list was successfully generated. So here now we can see the system has generated the invoice document, and I can print it and send it either through mail or print out or whatever way we want to do it. So friends, that's the end of this RE-FX solution for lease out businesses. Hope it gave you lots of good information. I'll publish few more videos related to the vacancy management, fixed deposits and cash flow reporting and some other things. Please share your input. How do you like and challenges you have faced, or how do you feel this solution works out? Also, you can contact me if required on this number and mail ID. This is my number. I'm based in India, so you can add 91. Thanks.